Muy buenos dias. Good morning. I hope you are well, staying positive and focused on what you can control. Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to Cafecito con ACE. Drop in where you are tuning in from in the chat and use the comment section, the chat section to network, connect, ask questions of one another and ask questions of our special guests today. My name is Patricia Mota, and I serve as president and CEO of ACE, a national organization whose mission since 1982 is to positively impact the workplace by cultivating the community of talent, providing insight, access, and support to be successful in their careers. A few key things in terms of announcements before we get started with our guests is today and later this month as well, we have opportunities for you to connect with great employers across the nation, many of which are also global employers. And so this is the free virtual career fair that's taking place today, 3 to 6 p.m. Central Time, and it's free. And so please check that out. You have employers like United Airlines, United Health Group, Ross, and so many others that are looking and have corporate opportunities. So check that out. And then October 30th, there's a focus on STEM careers. And so make sure to also engage with that. And so last thing I'll say before we jump in is today, October 15 is the last day, official day of Hispanic Heritage Month, Latino Heritage Month. But however, as you know, ASIC continues to do this work year round. So fear not to continue to engage with us, whether you're looking for speakers, inspiration, facilitators, various workshops on great topics throughout the year as we do with many of our partners. Please count on us to continue to push our mission forward and ensuring that we're in driving an engaged, inclusive workforce for everybody at the end of the day. So gracias y bienvenidos. And so without further ado, let me introduce our wonderful guest speaker who's joining us today, who is also an alum from Mujeres de ACE. We were talking from our inaugural Mujeres de ACE cohort in Dallas, Texas. Ruth Villalonga. She is now leading a company. She's the founder and CEO of Via Communications. And so we'll get to learn more about what she's up to. But as we all know, if you are a returner to Cafecito con ACE, first thing is first, nos gusta preguntar, ¿cómo te gusta tu café or your morning beverage of choice, Ruth?
I have it ready, and I don't have a morning without it. So I'll have a cafecito with actually almond milk, but it has to be steamed. And I also have a few drops of stevia. That's my way. And I have a couple of those throughout the day.
I think some of us are in a couple of cups of coffee throughout the day. And so cafecito con ACE, cafecito throughout the day. Hi, good morning. I see Federico put some coffee cup emojis. We have my colleague Chelsea, Kylie, so Texas. And then we have someone joining us all the way from Philadelphia, New York. Maria, Olga, bienvenidas. Buenos días. Buenos días. So, Ruth, one of the things that I love about Cafecito featuring stories like yourself is that, we are barrier breakers. We are achieving so much in our careers. And it's important that, as you know, as a communications expert, subject matter expert, it's important to share our stories and share our cultural professional background and how did we get to where we are today. So, Ruth, please share with us.
Absolutely. I mean, I am actually a political asylum seeker from Venezuela. 22 years later, and I like to always start with that to give people perspective. When given the right opportunities, this is the type of contribution we can bring to the table. I came to this country 22 years ago. I was already a communications professional and decided to embark on building my career. So I started as a press secretary for Mayor Bloomberg in the city of New York. One of the highest honors of my career, and then continued to healthcare. I did managed care for several years, both in New York and also in Texas. and moved to financial services. And that's why I actually joined Mujeres de HACE. I was changing industries. I was coming into a different place. And I knew I needed to lean on the support of my community and the development opportunities you offer to make sure I was able to leverage that opportunity. I spent about 7 years at Wells Fargo at the regional and national level, and then went to serve President Bush. We were driving policy-driven communications, particularly on economic-based immigration reform. And after that, I joined Burson, which is actually the #1 PR agency in the world. Throughout the journey, multicultural markets and the Latino market have always been a priority, and an area that I knew it was not being considered with the strength and the power and the funds and the attention it deserved. So, one day I said, you know what, if I care so much about this, I might as well do it myself. And that's how I decided to disrupt and found Villa Communications. And today we connect brands, organizations, and institutions authentically to the audiences that matter the most to their growth in today's America, which is multicultural and multidimensional. So we really work by making that bridge between brands and the community they serve. We like to say we help brands belong.
I love that. We help brands belong. So, wow. I say wow, right? What a trajectory. A true barrier breaker. You talk about being, and thank you for sharing your story of being an asylum seeker, right? And qué orgullo, Latino, Latina, Venezolano, ¿verdad? Sí. To be able to hear your trajectory, not only from politics, corporates, and now entrepreneurship. So lots going on. Folks that are joining, please, if you have any questions, you want to share your story. I know we also have San Antonio and my colleague in Chicago in the house. Bienvenidos a Cafecito con HACE. So Ruth, my next question for you, speaking of, all of that amazing trajectory and background that you have, you've had to break barriers along the way, right, in your career. So what barriers do you think need to break for Latina leaders in strategic communication and then specifically getting into the C-suite?
Yes, I mean, I'll tell you, just to give everybody perspective, imagine an ESL, English as a second language communications professional, working as a press secretary for the city of New York, right? The largest municipality in the country. And then moving to the largest hospital system, driving the communication strategy of 500,000 members of that health plan, which was the city's own health plan. And then serving as a director of external affairs for President Bush. I mean, those are real barriers that I thought impossible. Yeah. And I was able to break throughout my career in a combination of, having an incredible network, evidently being a visionary and working hard, but also working smart in understanding that the only way we have to advance ourselves is to really work on our personal brands, building that foundation. In communication strategies in general, and the communications professional in the US has been traditionally a very white industry, right? You don't see in any humble neighborhood across the country, in urban area, people turning around and telling their children, I want you to be a communicator. They want their children to be doctors, engineers, teachers, vets. But communications has always been very much a non-diverse sector. And I think it is important to understand that communications is everything. We build the realities that the world operates in, the narratives that define the world we are in, and what brands get to do and not to do, and what communities believe. So bringing all that together, there is a need for the continued advancement of women of color and diverse professionals within the communications industry, so that we get to really have a voice and help brands understand the value proposition that diverse markets represent. And if they want to future-proof their business, they really have to invest and think about how they connect with these communities and how they make sure they are part of it. To me, one way for breaking barriers for everyone, regardless of industry, is really working on your personal brand. No, not just what you do, but what you stand for. And make sure that everybody around you knows that. We have to be able to bridge the gap between how we're being seen and how we would like to be seen. And that is done strategically, intentionally, and in a disciplined manner. Every day, every interaction is a form of branding. You
100%.
have to be before you become. If you want the senior vice president role, start acting as an SVP today. You will see that materialize in itself because people will see that in you too.
So whether you believe it or not, and you've worked on it, everyone has a brand today, right? You have a brand. And what you're sharing is like the intentional approach to what you are perceived to be versus what you are wanting to be known for, or if you want to become that SVP, like you said, is behaving and acting and working towards that in a way that's authentic to who you are, right? And because it's so important, and we get it at ACE 100%, all of our programs have some sort of component or session, as you know, of building that brand, knowing what your brand is today, and most importantly, how are you working towards that brand that you want to really exude in an authentic and intentional manner. I'm seeing New Jersey and Nueva York in the house, and Roseanne, actually one of our Mujeres de ACE alum. Good to see you, and also former program lead that's joining us. Buenos dias. So Roseanne, I mean, I'm calling you Roseanne. I'm saying Roseanne on the comment section. Ruth. So you talked a little bit about your trajectory and your approach to the work itself. You talked about the branding. And because of your intentional focus on multicultural America, you talked a lot about, and I love, that you talk about diverse and the need to focus on diverse markets and segments. And that means everybody at the end of the day, but also paying attention to the growth areas, which is a business imperative, right? And then particularly the Latino community. Why do you believe the cultural intelligence has become even more critical for leaders today more than ever?
First, I always like to start by helping people understand that Latinos are the most diverse community of this country. We come in every single color, shape, form, with any background, political sentiment. Like, we're really, really diverse. So when you are just working on Latinos or concentrating on the Latino cohort, you're really concentrating in multicultural America, because that cohort in itself is extremely diverse. So why is important? Well, when you think about it, in the next 5 years, every 7 new jobs are going to be filled by a Latino or Latina. So this is a community that is going to be at the center of who you are as an organization. And on their shoulders will be your productivity and your growth as a company, right? As a brand. But more importantly, the incredible growth these communities driving. We all know we have a GDP of $4.1 trillion. We are creating business 6 times more than any other community. I mean, and the purchasing power we have and the spending habits we have define us as the growth driving community in America. So if you really want to future-proof your business in 5 to 10 years, if you're looking at how you're going to sustain your organization, you cannot miss this cohort. And cultural intelligence is a key part of understanding beyond stereotypes, understanding at the psychographic level, what moves us, what makes us tick, what coffee we drink and when and how. What exactly are the big motivators or the fear factors to really bring together in a strategy that truly and authentically speaks to the audience we're trying to connect with. So cultural intelligence is a key part of your employer brand and your consumer brand. And in itself is one of the biggest business assets and advantages you can have at this juncture.
I love that. So some of the key things that you shared, Ruth, for folks that are tuning in, whether you're a leader within your organization or you're looking to influence, right, leaders or within your organization, this video's here. Share the talking points that you just heard Ruth share, right? The data that's available as well in terms of the GDP and the growth market and the workforce, because it's not just a charitable thing to do, it is a business imperative for everyone in the economy at the end of the day, right? And so incredible information that you just shared. We have Maria Gonzalez who said, I like that when you said earlier, working on your personal brand is not just what you do, it's what you're passionate about. And I think that's the authenticity piece, right? Ensuring that how you're leading with your brand is truly authentic to who you are as a person, what you're passionate about. So great nuggets. And then we have Xochitl from Dallas, bienvenidas, Danitza, California, Yasica, New Jersey. So keep tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them, because believe it or not, we're running out of time here and we could stay here all day. But I think this next question is so relevant. I mean, everything is so relevant. You're talking about the age of AI and short news cycles, like driven by platforms such as TikTok. You've been known as a trusted advisor, and you shared, your background in terms of the folks that you've advised, incredible leaders across the country, to help bring clarity and candor and then results at the end of the day. So what advice do you have our audience, to young Latinas today who are looking to build that credibility for themselves? What would you say?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to have an opinion and express it. If you think about AI, most of the time, AI will not contradict you. It will not push back. It won't say no to what you're saying or asking. So being that critical thinker in a conversation, pushing back and expressing your opinion and challenging what is being said for the sake of exercising critical thinking, for the sake of really engaging in a conversation, in a discussion, is really going to set you apart. The other part is what you were referring to, authenticity. In a world driven by AI, where the biggest question we have when we see something is like, is this real or is this AI? Right? Authenticity is really what's going to make you differentiate yourself. It's your humanity. What's really going to set you apart. It is how you see things from the emotional intelligence standpoint. So developing that EQ is going to be critical as we walked into this era of automation and transformation and digitalization, and really as we prepare for the agent economy, which is a reality in the near future and something we need to prepare for. But the humanity we all have in us, the critical thinking, the judging of the discerning part, right, of the equation, is something that AI could never take away from us.
I love that. And we have, it must be a fan that we have. Federico says Ruth es the GOAT. So as in Spanglish is the greatest of all time. Wow, Ruth, you got a fan in Federico, and I could see why he believes that. I know we have a few.
This is an honor. Fede is an expert on AI. So I respect and look up to. So
okay. So future Cafecito con Ace guest, Federico, we get to pick your brain as well. So if anybody has a question or comment, these videos, they do stay here. We can always come back and add on this, engage in the chat, because I do have one last closing question, Ruth, and it's about, if you could have coffee with your younger self just starting out, what would you tell her about the journey ahead?
You know, the other day, Rosa Santana, who is one of the most successful Latinas in business, and if you don't know who Rosa Santana is, please look up her story because it's an inspiration to us all. She's a good friend, and we were at a conference where she disclosed that she had been writing a letter to her younger self. And that inspired me to do the same. And the first sentence I started with was, Ruth, I want you to know that everything is going to be okay. I think that having that certainty, when you are young and you are building your career, there is this rush and this like, you have ambition, but you also want to eat the world, in one bite and take it by storm. And all that energy and that passion is critical. And actually, passion will also set you apart. It's part of that authenticity. People will see the fire in your belly and know that you are hungry. And that is a key asset, combined with emotional intelligence and, competence. So conquer that and use that as your superpower. Embrace your Latinidad as a superpower as early as you can. I would have told myself that if I were talking to my younger self. When I came here as an immigrant, I wasn't sure about who I was. And all of a sudden I was told I was a Latina and I was brown. These people forget our constructs of the United States. They don't exist anywhere else. The first time I was asked my race, I was 23 years old and I was here. And I was like, why does that matter? Soon I discovered the community behind it. And then I was able to embrace the power that came with it. And I think that I would tell myself, hone into that power the sooner you can, because that in itself is going to be really, really one of your biggest assets. And the perspective you bring, the knowledge, the cultural know-how, and that impronta that you bring with you because of your culture is key. And always remember, this is something I learned later on, but I wish somebody would have told me. You are where you are because you are a Latino and not in spite of it.
I love that. It's something that we're always encouraging folks to lead with who you are, your Latinidad, and how important that is. I know we're running out of time, but if you could quickly, we have Maria Gonzalez that asked a question in terms of how do you handle or converse with people who may lack the cultural intelligence, which implies understanding beyond stereotypes. I know this is probably a longer response that you can address, but if you were to just answer quickly, what would you say?
Yes. And, I always start by finding what connects me to people. Once you find a connection, they may not understand you as Latina, but they may be a mother like you, or they may have a similar job, or they may have had the same boss you now have. Find a common ground and build from there. Once you have that connection, the person would have bought into. This is called a social object, and it's something that unites us very easily, and that helps build a relationship from the get-go. And you can see these when you go to a party and you see somebody, with the hat from your team or your hometown team. You immediately come to that person and connect with them, regardless of their background. Use that opportunity and that bonding to then start dropping little nuggets about why your experience is slightly different, right? You are still a fan of the Cowboys, but you came to be a fan of the Cowboys after you migrated from Latin America, and there are ways in which you can frame all that.
So critical is finding that common ground. We all have them. And I think that's one of the best advice I think anyone can have these days. Ruth, qué honor, what an honor to have you. Thank you for your time and your insights. And all of you that are joining in, please continue to engage in the chat. This video will be shared. It'll be up on our channels. And thank you again, Ruth. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank
y a
you.
todos, hasta la próxima. Until next time, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Patricia, and everyone. Thank you very much.